All right, so in the interview process, there are 3 steps. Number 1 is sourcing. Number 2 is interviewing the candidates. And number 3 is hiring those candidates. And I left some space here because what we're going to talk about today is this sourcing step right here. We're going to talk about the 2 sub-steps in sourcing. So one is what we're going to call our ideal candidate profile. Ideal candidate profile. And you'll see this often abbreviated as ICP, ideal candidate profile. And this is really just defining who do we want to go after? Who do we want to reach out to? So this is the who. Who do we want to reach out to in the interview process? And then number 2 is outreach. So after we define who we want to reach out to, then we can approach them. We can approach them to get in touch. So this is getting in touch. So who do we want to reach out to, and then getting in touch with those people. And what we're going to focus on today is, in this video, is just the ideal candidate profile piece of this, because it's really important to spend a lot of time up front thinking about who do we want to reach out to, who is our ideal candidate, the perfect candidate in our eyes that we want to talk to. And then once we know that, then we can go ahead and get in touch with them and reach out to them. But that's step 1. And this is so critical because if we don't have any candidates to source, we're never going to be able to do either of these other 2 steps, interview or hire candidates. First, we have to go out and find the candidates that we want to talk to. So let's then spend some time here digging into defining our ideal candidate profile today and breaking that down. So when we think about our ideal candidate profile, what we want to think about is who is the perfect candidate that we could be talking to. So think about this as the attributes of perfect candidate. And what we can do is just kind of list out some of these attributes. And one of those attributes, of course, is going to be, are they looking for a job? So we'll just call it job search. Are they actively, searching for a job? Another attribute might be the location of this person. Where are they based out of? Are they based somewhere that, we can work with them, whether we're a remote company or whether we're based in, San Francisco or New York or, Missouri? Is this candidate someone that we can base somewhere that we can work with them? Another attribute might be their skills or experience, right? Can they do the job, really, is what we're kind of asking here. Do they have the skills or experience to do the job, or, maybe can they learn it? So we might want to include traits here. Are they coachable? Are they tenacious? Are they determined? What type of traits does this person have? What are their pay expectations, right? What are their salary, compensation expectations? How much money do they want to make, and can we afford them? And then maybe another one might be like passions. What are they motivated by? What are their passions? What are they trying to get out of their next job? So this is, maybe the key 6 or so attributes, and there could be many more attributes. But what you're going to do is, before you even start to reach out to anyone, you're going to list out all the attributes that you want in somebody. And you're going to spend a lot of time defining these attributes in a lot of detail. So if we're reaching out to, let's say, salespeople, right? We're trying to hire some salespeople. We would want to go through and list out all the skills or experiences we'd expect this salesperson to have, and then list out all of the traits that we want them to have, and the exact salary range that we can afford, and what type of passion do we want this person to have. Or if we were doing this for, let's say we're hiring an engineer, a software engineer, right? What are the coding languages that this person has to know, and what type of projects have they worked on in the past that we want them to have in their skill set, right? What are the traits? How do they work within a team or a growing company type of organization? So we would spend some time listing out all these attributes for our ideal candidate profile. Then what we would do is, after we have that person in mind, then we would go out and start to find people that match or that fit the attributes of our perfect candidate. So we would take all this information that we have here, and we would go out and we would start to look online, look at public info to try to find people that match what we're looking for, because it's going to be really hard for us to know all this in detail just from someone's information online. right? You can start to infer some of this and make some assumptions, but like we're not going to know someone's deep, passions or like pay expectations just by looking at their LinkedIn profile. But there are some things that we can figure out, right? We can figure out their location. That's an easy one to know. We can figure out any jobs that they've held. Most people list that out on their LinkedIn. We can figure out their education, and we can infer something from that. And we can also, sometimes for some careers, some people will have like a portfolio of work that they've listed out, maybe on their LinkedIn as well. So this might be some of the information we can find online. And you got to be careful with some of this, right? Because one, maybe somebody hasn't listed out all this information. Two, just because someone doesn't have something doesn't mean they're necessarily unqualified to do our job, right? Just because someone doesn't have, certain education background doesn't mean that they're not going to be great at the role. And this is where, recruiting gets really tricky, especially in today's day and age where recruiters are always trying to do their best to include as many people as possible into the hiring process. Because of course, recruiters don't want to miss out on someone great just because they couldn't find the information online. But it's really tough because when you just have, a resume or LinkedIn profile to go off of, it's hard to see all this information. It's actually one of the things that we're trying to change here at Ramped is to provide more public information on someone's skill set, right? So that you could actually quantify or look at someone's skills prior to interviewing them and decide if you want to bring them into the interview process. That's part of what we're building here at Ramped. It's what you're going through right now, actually. But for the most part, it's really hard. It's really hard to see these skills today. And you're more likely to be able to just find this type of information online. Typically, what you'd use is LinkedIn to do that. But once we have our public information, then we are going to create a list. And this is a list of candidates that we want to reach out to. All right, so let's just review the process up to this point. So we've gone and created the ideal candidate that we're looking for, listed out all the attributes in detail for the perfect candidate that would do our job well. Then we went online and we started using some approximations for this information to find candidates that might be able to do what we're looking for. So location, job experience, education, any portfolio of work that we can see. And then we're going to take all those candidates and create a short list of, maybe let's just say about 50 to 100 candidates that we want to reach out to. And what we're going to list out is their name, their email, and their phone number. And once we have this information, email and phone, you can get from tools online. There's a lot of tools out there that'll help you with that information. But once we get all this, then we can start reaching out to candidates, and we can start reaching out to them to try to get them to come into our interview process and our recruiting process. And in the next video, we'll spend more time looking at how that works exactly.